What's up everyone, back for another beer review, and today I'll be reviewing yet another beer from the Stone Brewing Company, and they are out of both Escondido, California and Richmond, Virginia, and this is their Sublimely Self-Righteous Black IPA, and this is the 2024 release. So this is an Imperial Black IPA that comes in at 8.7% alcohol by volume, 90 IBUs, and at the time of review, this can is just over 7 weeks old, and it also has an enjoy by date of June 29th of 2024, and we're just over 2 months away from that date. So according to Stone, we should be more than good to go. So full disclosure, I've had this beer once before back in the early to mid 2010s, and I strongly disliked it. I'm not going to say I hated it, but I strongly disliked it. However, it wasn't the beer's fault. It was my own fault, because at that point, I did not like black IPAs. I wasn't a huge fan of the style, and I still say that nowadays. However, the last couple of black IPAs I reviewed on the channel, I actually thoroughly enjoyed. So it might be one of those situations where my palate is finally coming around to a style that I did not like for many, many years. So I'm really excited to get into this one. The hops they're using are Chinook, Simcoe, and Amarillo. It says featuring those. I'm sure they're probably brewing them with maybe some other hops, but those are the ones that are featured. And yeah, they have a spiel on the back because it's Stone that I'm not going to read it right now. Maybe at the end, if I remember, I'll read them. If not, it'll be in the description box. But it basically talks about how they first released this one as an anniversary ale back in 2007. They retired this beer, and I think it was 2015 or 16, and then they brought it back a couple years ago because fans were clamoring for it, and it seems like it's back in rotation every single year. So this is the 2014 release, and I'm here for it. Looks like cola pouring out of the glass. And of course, I can't pour properly, so it's spilling everywhere. Do something like that, and we will grab a paper towel before this hits the table. So I have to clean it up. So we'll do something like that. I'll pour the rest in as we continue to drink on it. But yeah, that poured out more like Coca-Cola in the glass. That is definitely, you're going to see it as pitch black. I see it as, again, a Coca-Cola or maybe like a root beer or something. There's like ruby red hints or like lighter browner hints at the bottom. But yeah, in the glass, it's like a dark brown. It has a 3-finger of the straight on, we'll say khaki colored head, maybe a little bit darker. I wouldn't say quite bokeh, I'd say khaki colored head. Looks beautiful, some tightly compact bubbles, some slightly bigger bubbles, but definitely has a creaminess to it. Hold it up to a light. Yeah, it's straight on dark brown, but again, on camera, it's gonna look pitch black. And we'll try to fit some more in here if we can. Something like that. I'll do the cheat. Doesn't really matter, no. So it looks beautiful in the glass. Let's get a nose. Ooh. Yeah, so I think I'm starting to like black IPA. So when I say it's not one of my styles that I enjoy, you know, your palate changes a lot. And for me, there's a lot of styles I used to love that I don't like as much of that anymore, and vice versa. And black IPAs, I can say probably based on the aroma of this, I'm starting to get into them. So it has this beautiful, like chocolatey kind of coffee roasted malt character that's intertwined with a lot of fruitiness. There's zesty citrus, there's like orange, there's grapefruit, but then I'm getting more like berries and like pineapple. Ooh, maybe even like a cherry. Yeah. There's a little bit of like a resinous pine kind of like aroma that's mixing with like a slight dankness. Ooh. Some caramel maybe. Big roasted vibes though. It's like roasted coffee, but also like deeply roasted malt. I can't get, it's cool because my mind is struggling. And again, it's a style that I don't drink a lot until lately anyway. So my mind is struggling with that roasted malt, coffee, chocolate, all the darker malt characteristics that is working hand in hand with all the fruitiness. Like, it's kind of weird to my mind, but it's lovely. Yeah, pineapple, maybe even like a little bit of like a passion fruit. Man, this is wild. This smells fucking awesome. Almost 2 months old too, and you couldn't tell this is almost 2 months old based on the nose. The nose is very vibrant. Yeah, that smells really good. Pour the rest in here. And then we're going to take a proper sip and not a little cheat here like I've been doing. So anyway, let's get into it, everybody. Cheers. Ooh, this is real bitter. Oh my God. So I like it more now than I did back in the day, clearly. But man, this might be the upper echelon of what I can handle with bitterness. This is very resinous, very pine centric, and very, very bitter. So the body on this one's like higher side of medium, lower side of full, 8.7%, perfect. The mouthfeel, it has a very effervescent, kind of snappy, crispy kind of carbonation, like moderate carbonation, but it's very smooth on the palate and almost has like a creaminess. That head is actually quite creamy. I like that. I like how it's snappy and crispy, but still smooth and creamy to some degree. The taste, the nose carried over with the one main difference being it didn't smell like it was going to be super bitter and super resinous on the palate, but it is. Right up front though, roasted malt, coffee, chocolate, caramel, a lot of good malt character just hit me at the forefront. As it passes through, a little bit of citrus kicks in, the orange and the grapefruit, zesty, a little pithy, also a little bit like a juice aspect from those fruits. Then I get a touch of like the pineapple. I was getting like a mixed berry, maybe a touch of passion fruit. Not as big as it was in the nose. The nose was definitely more fruity. The taste is more like bitter, resinous, pine, herbaceous. So anyway, that all happens the first half, first 2/3 of the palate. On the finish though, this has a pretty big dryness. I would say it's full on dry. And again, the bitterness, my palate has become very accustomed to bitterness over the years and drinking, as many beers as I have on the channel, but as a whole. And I thought at one point recently, I was like, all right, I haven't met a beer that's too bitter for my palate in a very long time. This is skirting that line where, as I talk to you, in the back of my throat, back of the tongue, it's a buildup of resinous pine bitterness. It's just sticking on the back of my palate. It's kind of crazy. Yeah, so full on, the bitterness assaults my palate. If you love the old school like bitter beers, like your palate wreckers of the world, I still think at this point in time, this would be a beer that you would run to buy because it has that bitterness. Especially if you like black IPAs. Like I don't understand how you wouldn't like this if you like the bitterness. It also has like this herbaceous kind of earthiness on the back of the palate too. Go back in for another sip. My palate is starting to get acclimated to it, so the bitterness is starting to kind of level off a bit. I'm trying to process what the fuck is happening on my palate right now. Like, do I enjoy it? If you've ever had like a bite of food, and as you continue to eat through your plate, you might have a certain opinion to start with, and then by the end of your meal, you have a completely different opinion. It's kind of what's happening with this beer as I drink it. Because I'm really starting to dig it a lot more as I start to dive further into it with each sip. A couple reasons. Number one, I love the first half of the palate. That malt character, that very complex malt character mixed in with that fruitiness is just a beautiful, like, again, it's very cohesive. It intertwines. It lends itself to what I'm kind of looking for. It's almost like chocolate or like coffee covered fruit. And that sounds delicious to me. And I've had, chocolate covered bunch of different fruit, and it is delicious. So it kind of works, for what I'm looking for out of this style. However, the last third of the palate is where it's kind of thrown me for a loop, where it's very dry, very bitter. And that's not something I love. Now, I love bitterness. If you watch the channel and you see me review New England IPAs nowadays, I always say like, I want some kind of firm bitterness. This, off of the first like 3 or 4 sips, was too much for me. The last couple sips, however, my palate's like, all right, I like that. Yeah, I really like it now. It's wild how that just changed in a couple minutes, man. Oh yeah, 8.7% too. Holy fuck, I forgot this was Imperial. Like this drinks, I would say like the intensity, obviously the bitterness, the flavors and everything, yeah, it seems bigger, but like alcohol, I couldn't tell you this is over 7.5, somewhere in that realm. The fact that it's almost 9%. And I've mentioned this before with some of you guys who comment on the videos about like IBUs and whatnot. IBU ratings, kind of for me, it's just a thing that I read off at the beginning if a brewery lists IBU ratings. IBU ratings are not an end-all be-all or be-all end-all of bitterness. If someone says 60 IBUs, it might drink like it's 30. It might say 20 IBUs and drinks like it's 60. It's just how it is. A lot of other factors go into it. Ingredients, all kinds of stuff. This, though, however, being 90 IBUs, this drinks like 90 IBUs, and I don't think I've said that in a very long time. This has the bitterness of something you'd expect that has that IBU rating. So this is really fucking good. However, it's not my favorite black IPA I've had recently. I think that Lawson's Finest one was delicious. But this has a lot of character to it and has a lot of flavor. And now that my palate's acclimated to the bitterness, I'm really digging it. I'm not going to give it a crazy high score, but I'm going to give it a higher score than anticipated off the first couple sips, because I don't think I would have gave this a 4 off the first couple sips. I think it was a little bit too bitter and too harsh and brash for my palate. But now I'm digging it quite a bit. So Sublimely Self-Righteous Black IPA, the 2024 release from Stone. I'm going to give this a low 4.25 and go 4.15. Yeah, I think that's much higher than I anticipated based off the first couple sips. I was just like, ooh, that bitterness is just a bit too much for me. And as I sit here talking to you, yeah, it's still lingering on the back of the palate, but it's a nice bitterness. And again, my palate's been acclimated to it, so it's not over the top. Just a really well done Imperial Black IPA. And I'm sure if you've had this one before, you still enjoy this one. Very, very akin to what I remember this beer being. To be honest with you, like I remember this beer being like this, and it is what it is. Again, I'm not gonna read this. It just, again, pretty much says everything that's going to be in the description. So if you really want to read the description, it'll be in the description box or some form of it. So price point, availability, price point. I bought that as a single. I think it was like $2.99 for the can, but I'm pretty sure 6-packs were like, I want to say they're like $16.99. Depending on where you are, you probably find this anywhere between like $15 to $18 a 6-pack. That's fine for something that's 8.7%. You get a 6-pack. It's a Imperial Black IPA. You don't see them a lot. I don't think that's a bad price point. Maybe a little bit higher than some folks would like to pay, but it is what it is. And availability, it's Stone. It's a seasonal or a rotating offering at this point. Here's where I say you should see this if you see Stone, but that's not always the case. There's a lot of releases from some of these bigger breweries like the Stones and Lagunitas of the world where they don't always show up for everybody. So I hope you see this one, especially if you like black IPAs, because this is a good one. Just be prepared for the onslaught of bitterness on the palate. Although a lot of you who love bitterness, you might not think this is all that bitter. And like I said, I've come around on bitterness over the years, and I do like bitter beers. This is, again, skirting the line of being a bit too much for my palate. So I could see some people taking a couple sips and being like, nah, that's too much for me. Other people going, yeah, give me palate wrecker. I need like 1,000 IBUs, whatever. It is what it is. I think palate wrecker, I don't know if it was 1,000, it was like a couple hundred or something. Anyway, if you've had this one before, post in the comment section. Let me know what you thought about it, whether it's this release or prior releases. I'm sure the recipe is very similar for the last couple of years they've released it. And yeah, I'm going to go drink the rest of that and kind of sip on it and see how I do with the last like 4 or 5 ounces, 6 ounces of this. But I'm looking forward to it. So appreciate everybody stopping by for another beer review here on the Beer Patrol. This was a shelfie beer for the month of May 2024. We're starting off shelfie beers with a bang. Very good beer. Anyway, to the next one. Cheers.